welcome to our end of the year State of the Eagles. David Moulton joined by FGCU Athletic Director Ken Kavanaugh. And no, we have not had a falling out. All right, we're obviously just, keeping our proper distance these days. And good to see you. Obviously not under these circumstances in which all your years of college athletics, has there ever been anything like this before?
Nothing even close to it, and that's, I think, the hard part for everybody. We're used to routines. We're used to seasons.
Sure.
Even the off season, we're used to what we kind of do. And the off season came way too early. But we're all just trying to do the right thing, stay safe, and hopefully in another couple of weeks or months, we'll be back to normalcy, at least the best to our abilities.
And very weird from a college sports standpoint that two seasons end at exactly the same time. A winter sports season comes to an end, and then, of course, an abbreviated spring season comes to an end. So let's go back and wrap up the winter, which isn't the biggest, but is the most high profile of seasons here at FGCU. You've got two basketball teams, and you've got a swimming and diving program. Let's start with the women's basketball team. I guess we will never know if this, in the first 18 years of FGCU women's basketball, was their best team, but they were 30-3. They finished nationally ranked in the coaches poll. Another regular season ASUN championship, deemed by the conference to be, hey, this is our representative if we had gone forward. And Ken, I could argue if it's not the first, it's the second best team that Coach Siemeszko's ever had.
Yeah, I think all the information that's put into the system would bear that out. Certainly the highest RPI that we've ever had, and I think we were 34th when the season ended, including our non-conference RPI, all the success we had. A Duke team that we beat by 21, last I knew they were in the top 30 in the RPI, and UCF, who we beat by 20 or 21, they were like 35th in the RPI, not to mention other really good quality wins against the South Dakota States and the USFs and other teams that were on that schedule, which when we finished it up last year, Carl was really concerned, even with the veteran team coming back, he bit off more than we could chew, and it certainly wasn't that case.
When the regular season ended, I asked him at the time, that was 28-3, if I had, before the season, said to you, I'll give you 28-3. He's like, wow. He said, we didn't even know if we'd go 500 in non-conference play. They ended up 2-2 against teams ranked in the top 50 of the RPI, 6-2 against teams that were ranked in the top 100. And I thought 4 years ago that group of seniors, the Gleasings, the Haas, the Whitney Knights, the Atwaters, that maybe there would never be a group as special as that. But you come back 4 years later, and it's a group as special as that.
Yeah, and I think really when the postseason awards, which we were very proud of, Carl and his staff for the 10th time in 12 years being named Coaching Staff of the Year. Kerry got both the Player of the Year and the Scholar Athlete of the Year, which was phenomenal. It's the first one to do so since Sarah Hansen did back in 13-14. Ty repeated as a Defensive Player of the Year. But there are a lot of cases. Naz, I believe, made second team. You look at Davion and the great year she had. I think we split votes, and we could have had a number of other individuals that could have been in a position for additional awards, but I don't know if there was FGCU fatigue or it's just the fact that our votes got split. But just was an unbelievable year, and something that, as we look back on, certainly, as you mentioned, will be ranked as the best team, or no worse than the second when you put that team from a few years ago.
And it will be a very different looking team next year, because not only the 5 seniors, but there are 3 redshirt juniors who, as the time of this taping, we're all planning on leaving. And so, that's over half the roster that is going to be different for next season. It's funny, though, 4 years ago, Siemeszko was in that very same situation. It's the last time I didn't pick FGCU to win the conference, because I picked someone else that year, and sure enough, FGCU won. So I have vowed never to bet against Siemeszko.
Well, and I think that's
again.
A pretty good decision thought process.
Yeah, he's pretty good at this. Meanwhile, as disappointing a men's basketball season as maybe has ever happened here at FGCU, what could go wrong did go wrong. Christian Carlisle, who would have been the starting power forward, gets hurt in the summer. Brian Thomas, who was the starting center, gets hurt 7 minutes into the season. Hardy was hurt. Hector was hurt. And then 11 games decided by 5 points or less, in which they went 3-8. I mean, it was just a domino effect, and it started really 8 months ago.
Well, and I take my responsibility on that too. I think if I'd looked back and knew what was going to happen, we wouldn't have scheduled what we did. And we put ourselves in a position where you look at Liberty, who wound up being the best team in the league. I think they went like 14-1, but their non-conference schedule was really, really weak.
I think it was like 330 out of 350.
Yeah, and you don't want to ever go that route, but we put ourselves in a position again where we played USC and VCU and St. Louis, and Robert Morris wound up winning the Northeast Conference tournament. South Dakota State, who had another strong year, amongst some others, and I just looked at it and said, okay, I took a part of this, and maybe we could have gotten off to a better start. That could have helped us, maybe gaining a little bit more confidence, and we could have won some of those other close games. But when you have a young team that is normal as they grow, and we look forward to Caleb and some of the other young players now that they're going to be juniors and in a position of senior, the individuals that came in this year, for the most part, our junior class, other than Brian, who was injured for the most part, were newcomers. So hopefully that ability in basketball, we all know is such a team sport, will gel better. And with the new players coming in, we look forward to next year being much better.
If you think about it, heading into this season, FGCU was only going to have 2 players who had ever played more than 1 year of Division I college ball. Those 2 players were Christian Carlisle, injured, missed the whole season. Brian Thomas suffered a serious knee injury and gutted it out for the rest of the year, but was not nearly the player that he was heading into the season. I mean, I know he had thoughts of being a Player of the Year type candidate and a Defensive Player of the Year type candidate. So when you think about it, their 2 most experienced players were not nearly what they thought they were going to be, or no production at all. You could see why the year went south. A lot of returning scoring, however. Next year they'll have over 70% of their points that will come back next season, obviously in need of a bounce back year. Swimming and diving, meanwhile, had another terrific season, and sometimes you can do your best and still not win a championship, and your best could be better than anyone's ever done before.
Yeah, we wound up finishing second again to Liberty. It's either been us or Liberty that have won, I think, the last, I think it's now 12 or 13 championships. We've won 9 of them, and I think they've won 3 or 4. We've had some great individual performances, in particular led by Petra Halma, our juniors. We felt a bit an All-American if she had the chance to get in the pool in Athens for the Nationals, but she dominated at the CCSA in her 2 events in the breaststroke. The 200 breaststroke was the one that she qualified as the 10th fastest time in the country. It was only getting better as the year went on. So it's a disappointment that Petra wasn't able to go to compete in the NCAA championships, and we had some other individuals that won gold medals at the championships. And we had a really young team, and we believe coming back next year, we hope to be the favorites to go back and win a championship.
Before we put the winter season to bed, with either what your gut feeling is from the conversations that you've had with other athletic directors, with maybe some folks at the NCAA, there is talk of allowing certain athletes, if they fit certain criteria, to come back again and compete next year. Most of that is just for the spring sports, but like you mentioned, Petra, an outstanding diver. Do you think that there will be any wiggle room for some winter sports athletes to be able to come back to their schools next year?
I believe there is. I would be in favor of that. I think anybody whose season was basically done, it was done. They had a chance no different than the fall sports to get to where they needed to be. But those elite athletes, in particular like Petra, the swimming and divers, wrestlers who had earned their way to go to the NCAA championships, gymnastics was another sport like that. I believe that they're not going to sway the balance of scholarships, and it's really very difficult roster management for people as they're going to try to work through it with the spring sport. So I believe it should happen. I don't think there's going to be enough support, and as much as we'd love to have our core of those seniors coming back for women's basketball,
right.
I think it's time. And a number of individuals wouldn't choose to come back anyway. It's time for them to go on to their next stage of their life, whether it's a career opportunity they're getting ready to start, or going to med school, law school, grad school of some sort. It's just an element that I think for some people we're done, and it's unfortunately didn't end as easily as we would have liked in normalcy. But I think from that standpoint, only the individual sport who are at the NCAA level should be able to go.